Welcome to Bombast. Today is Monday, the 9th of March, 2026, and it's only been about 48 hours since Mojtaba Khamenei has been declared as the successor of his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This is the first time that we have seen succession in the Islamic Republic of Iran after the 1979 revolution. Khomeini was insistent on the transition of leadership to be outside the leader's family. There's also rumors that even Khamenei had decreed that it should not be his son, but it seems that under the influence of the very powerful intelligence of the IRGC, which seems to be the only functioning body of the Islamic Republic right now, the Council of Experts has appointed Mojtaba, who is very, very close to the IRGC. To discuss the ramifications and the prospects of his leadership, we're joined by Mr. Nurbakhsh, a scholar in the UK, who is basically focused on Iranian domestic and diplomatic affairs. Mr. Nurbakhsh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mohammed, for having me.
So what's your reading on this?
Actually, for some people, it came as a surprise. For some, it wasn't. Mostly for Iranian inside Iran, it wasn't a surprise. They know Mojtaba from those 2009, actually, protests. That first time they heard about his existence as someone who was behind the curtain, was attempting a coup to don't let the power get to the Mir Hossein Mousavi by election, and Ahmadinejad appointed again with the help of the IRGC. And that was the first time Iranian actually heard about Mojtaba. And all this year there was a debate, is he going to succeed Khamenei? I still believe that if it wasn't because of the war that's going on, and it's not just an ordinary war, it is something that for Islamic Republic is as a final battle. It's something that they, like a judgment day, something they were waiting for it in their ideology before the coming of the 12th hidden Imam Mahdi that we are going to discuss about that. I still believe that they put him ascending of Mojtaba Khamenei to the throne right now is first of all, the sign of defiance, and also we should put aside the ideology and the survival, geopolitics of the survivor. So right now, when actually we are having this program, we cannot even say that is he alive or dead, because Israel will go after him and they're going to bomb every place as they think he is right now. So his whole reign could be for 1 or 2 days, from 1 or 2 hours to 1 or 2 days. So, but if by a miracle actually he survives and he rules over Iran, there are several signs is sending by coming to the power. The first thing, as I said, is a sign of defiance. So, and we should be careful. We should also already accept the fact that the Rodriguez model, that was the Donald Trump whole idea, was failed. He thought that for the first day he's going to bomb the compound, he's killing the Supreme Leader and upper echelons of Iranian states, and then and moderate as a Rodriguez will come out by after all these signals he gave. But he doesn't understand, first of all, why it failed, because if in Venezuela there was United States and Venezuela, here we have Benjamin Netanyahu, that no one in Iran can be sure what is going on in his mind. That even last night I was watching CNN, Farid Zakaria admitted that, said that both these leaders have different plans for Iran. So we see actually the way that Israel operates and the way US operates. It looks like Israelis, they are just paving the way for an armed uprising from the West, from the Kurdish sides, because they are relentlessly bombing all military and even police compounds in whole western part of Iran around the Kurdish area. I'm from one of those areas, so I know what I'm talking about. Last night they bombed. I'm from a very small town. They bombed a central police station in my town. The police station was not any threat to Israeli army. Or even there was another army, not IRGC, but army base in my town, that actually this is an engineering corps. So the basic of the that engineering corps is building bridges. Again, there was not an armored vehicle corps. It was not a fighting corps. They bombed it horribly. So that means that they're paving the way for any uprising from the West, so they could come and go either to Tehran or they create a bridgehead and starting their operation from there. So IRGC sees that, everybody sees that inside, said we are not going to do the Rodriguez. Even if we come out with the Rodriguez plan, there is no guarantee that Benjamin Netanyahu let this Rodriguez be alive. He can again go to the Washington, whisper in the Trump's ear, and the Trumps, he will believe him. He will believe everyone. He's in the power, like Putin, like Netanyahu. He believes this, bro. This is a psychological complex that he has. And again, that the Rodriguez will fail and Netanyahu will complain. So they are not going to do that. So the only thing they think, the only way they can survive is by continuing the name of Khamenei. That is very important, and showing the defiance and showing that you thought you removed a leader, supreme leader, but Khamenei is still alive. It's a brand. It's a brand that actually gathered many people outside Iran, not inside Iran.
Besides being a show of defiance, it actually shows a deep resentment, I think, by the remainder of the Islamic regime. And I don't know what the remainder of the Islamic regime is really. Is it only the intelligence services of the IRGC? Because it's increasingly looking like that. But Khamenei himself was deeply hated among the Iranian people, the majority of the Iranian people. And if you were to find somebody who was more despised, it would probably be Mojtaba Khamenei. So the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei is a risk by itself by the IRGC intelligence services. It's totally, even there were people who were sitting on the fence about the war. I mean, they were saying like, we can't support the war because it's a war of aggression and whatnot. But the appointment of Mojtaba, I've seen many people, they have come to the side of the war now. They're saying, okay, let's give war a chance. The appointment of Mojtaba means that if Iran is to exist after this war, 70 or 80% of Iranians either have to die or submit or flee the country, because he represents the minimum 10% who are staunch radicals. The other 90% of the society are fearful of him and hate him deeply. So isn't that in itself a risk for the regime?
It could be the last gamble of Islamic Republic. One day, maybe they call the last gamble. Maybe it will be something that actually saved the regime. And I agree with most of the things you said, but again, there is an element of surprise here too. Nobody knows. There are rumors that he's a hardliner, but there is no proof. You know what I mean? So nobody knows who's going. I still believe that if it wasn't for him personal, because his wife, his child, and his father was killed and he was wounded last week. So now it's become personal. If it wasn't personal, maybe still there was a chance that he could actually show. In Shia ideology, there is a place for this kind of surrender that actually in that kind of model, that was the same model that Khamenei used when they established the JCPOA. So, but again, the problem is that you are not fighting with one enemy that you can sit and negotiate. You are fighting with two enemies with two different plans. That makes it a problem. Second, about what they hate him. Yes, that's true. And Islamic Republic doesn't care. Islamic Republic is a long time. He doesn't actually put his legitimacy he doesn't receive his legitimacy inside the Iranian society. We saw that in Bloody January. They kill. They massacre the people. They don't care if the people are not with him or are with him or not. For now, we should go back and see how this Islamic Republic created. Was it created by the will of the people? The revolution was by the will of the people, but the way that they came to the power, they just hijack it. And then they put an ideology. It's based on not a national idea, not based on a state-nation model, but about the transnational and Islamic and Shia ideology. So there is a very interesting scene last week when Khamenei was dead. There were many Iranians who were rejoicing, also some Iranians who were mourning, of course, but inside and outside, mostly outside Iran, everybody was rejoicing. And at the same time, Pakistan is Shia, Iraq is Shia, Lebanon is Shia, were mourning. So this is actually the force that IRGC and Islamic Republic rely on. Again, Khamenei is a brand against the Zionism, against the power of arrogance, as they call United States, and a brand for the global South. So it was very important for them that this brand doesn't go down. Imagine that they put an unknown Ayatollah with a surname that many people couldn't even pronounce. What would happen? I'm sure there will be less support from those people that they rely on their support. Again, they are not relying on the support of inside Iran. First. Second, actually, by 2 days ago, something very horrible happened in Tehran. We all know that Israeli fighters, they bombed the fuel depot around Tehran, and it created a disaster, ecological disaster. So even that's actually made many people who were supporters of the war inside, not outside, to now think about it again. So this kind of operation that we saw from Israeli, that even I heard that there was a debate between and a complaint from the US side to Israeli that it was not a necessity to go to this phase, and the ecological disaster that happens later for people in Tehran, it makes people also doubt that does it really the war is it something that they could use to eliminate the regime, or it will be more devastating, more nastier for them. That all the possible options that could happen if, for example, let's say the same year or the next year, Khamenei, who was an old man, would die, and the transition power go more smoothly than during the wartime.
The other main question is whether the Americans will accept Mojtaba Khamenei as their opposing side. I don't think President Trump is going to recognize Mojtaba Khamenei under any circumstances. And Mojtaba's leadership will be basically conducted entirely from the depths of the earth near hell, because he would be under, hundreds of meters of bunker just to stay alive. Whether he's alive or not, we don't even know if he's alive or not. So what
That's
kind
a good
of
point.
what kind of message is that sending? It's just a message of weakness and desperation, and I don't think it's a message of strength by the Iranian side.
Again, we should come back to what I said. Inside Iranian hardline and inside all the regime, they come to this conclusion that there couldn't be any deal with US. They not approve of any deal. I mean, in US, and Israel is not approved. This is the last battle. Either we win it or we will be destroyed. So, as the Turkey foreign minister also said,
but I feel like they want to destroy Iran with them.
I was going to do that, and they say that we had this conversation for many years that if we go, there will be nothing for you left to play with. So I'm actually those kind of attacks to the regional power, to the regional countries, that could be followed by their retaliation. They could exactly what they play in their hand, that they want to turn Iran to the scorched earth and say, look, that was you wanted. If we go, first of all, we take all the region with ourselves, and we're saying Iran too. Again, also we should come back to the Shia ideology. In Shia ideology, every imam, 12 imam that was in the Shia ideology, was replaced by his son. So being a son, coming after his father, and the son was not necessarily the eldest. Mojtaba is the second son. And so that's exactly, they're not looking inside Iran to see that, oh, people hate Khamenei, let's put someone more favorable. For example, let's say the former President Rouhani. They are not going to do that because they know that people in Iran will hate this regime anymore. They are not going to turn, even if they stay silent and not coming, and they don't come to the street like what happened in 12 Days War, they are not going to support the regime. So for them, it doesn't matter at all. Let's work on the support we have in the region, inside Iraqi Shias, Lebanese Shias, Pakistani Shias, and show them that the Imam has gone, but the son of the Imam has actually succeeded him. And even being in a compound, it's also symbolized the situation we have with the last Imam who is in hidden, Imam Mahdi, I mean, and he will come back. So believe me, there are people inside the regime, they still believe that
I'm sorry, I have to intervene, but this, I don't want to stop you.
Let me just finish
I'm just saying
this
this is all
Sorry,
bollocks.
Mohammed.
I mean, for God's sake, it doesn't matter. I mean, what they believe in their minds, they could be psychopathic or whatever.
It is. Some of them really believe that this is a prelude of the coming of Mahdi.
It doesn't carry any weight in the real world. In the real world, this is a show of desperation. It will reduce their hold on power in Iran, because people would rather die than have Mojtaba Khamenei rule them. So whatever they believe in their, decrepit minds doesn't really matter. Why does it matter?
Again, when we talk about dictators, we talk about ideological system. We cannot look for the ration. We should look for the survival instinct. We should look for the fantasy. We should look for the legends. And we should look for the way they see the world. So, again, 47 years ago, this regime came with a clear ideology that we are the bridge between the return of someone who has been hidden for 1,000 years. So that was their ideology. Yes, if right now, if to say that anyone, any scholar, it will be laughing at you. But in that moment, many people believed that, and they believed that, and they repeated and repeated that again. So many people inside really believe that. They feel that, for example, being as a Mojtaba in the command, doesn't matter if he comes to the public or not, it symbolizes the Mehdi. And if they can survive, Mehdi will come and rescue them. But in reality, that could be the last battle, not only for the regime, unfortunately for Iran too. First of all, the people who came out uprise in January, they thought that this is the last time that they are going to the street, and after that they have a better future for themselves, for the children. They were massacred by the regime. And then they waited for this war somehow, and now the war comes with the devastation over them, with the ecological disasters that could be continued further. I even heard about the rumors that the American thinking about seizing the Hark Island, where the oil terminal of Iran would go up. So just imagine any bombing happen in Hark Island. It would be a disaster for whole Persian Gulf, and especially because Hark Island is very close to the Iranian border, onshore line. So it will be a disaster. It will be a disaster for the last generation. It will be something like in 1991 Kuwait, liberation of Kuwait. We all still remember those things, what happened to the ecology. So there are also people who say that let's be Mojtaba, but not be something like that, because there is, believe me, there is a death, and there is a big difference between a sudden death and being temporary, going temporary toward the death. That's more horrible. And in that psychological state, many people prefer a quick death or no death at all than go and suffer every day for the rest of their lives.
That is a very apocalyptical view that you described that the regime has, and I think they're faced with their apocalypse. I cannot see any scenario of the regime. There is no regime really. It's just Sazman Etelat Sepah, or SAS, or the IRGC intelligence. I don't see any scenario that they can survive beyond March. It is just counterintuitive to give any weight to their, whatever ideology they aspire to, because we are not talking about ideology now. We're talking about a public which is deeply against them, the United States and Israel, which have superior fighting force, their lack of logic. They could have come up with all sorts of scenarios to even capitulate and take part in some sort of civil transfer of power in Iran. They don't want to do that. They don't want to transfer power. They want to kill the country with themselves, with the regime. And unfortunately, I think they can do it. I think they can actually destroy the country with them. And yes, go on.
Sorry. I want to say, that happens in history. Also 2 times in World War II, when German forces were withdrawing from Paris, Adolf Hitler asked the commanders to destroy anything that is marked of Paris, all sightseeing. They refused. Again, when he was in bunker in Berlin the last day, and the Soviet forces were a couple of miles ahead of him, he was also believed in the final victory as some kind of weapon, super weapon that emerges in his imagination. And also he asked Albert Speer to destroy any remaining infrastructure for German people not to survive. He said they are not worthy to survive. Again, Albert Speer refused to do that. And German nation actually survived. But in 1991, When Saddam Hussein forces were withdrawing from Kuwait, they destroyed all oil wells, and they created that horrible, catastrophic ecological disaster that overshadowed several years, actually, several months at least, the whole region. So either people in IRGC will act like Albert Speer or like Saddam's general. We don't know. I hope that somehow they wake up, they see the reality. But again, so we should also put ourselves if we want to find out what is going to happen, we can't just say from outside, you should do it. We should look at them. They're like an angry cat, back to the corner. That's why they started to be defiant. Actually, Trump, by choosing to do this operation with Israel, it put them no options to surrender, because they don't believe surrender actually save them. And he said, if it doesn't save us, as Louis XVI in France says, after me it could be flood. After me, flood. I don't care. They have the same ideology and same state of mind right now.
That is so true and so sad. Mr. Irfan Nurbakhsh, thank you very, very much for your valuable insight. We will be coming to you regularly in the coming days to follow up with the developments. And thank you for our viewers who've been following us, and especially the short English segments, which are more intended for second-generation Iranians and maybe some English-speaking observers who want to see what the Iranians are thinking about. Thank you all. Until next time, goodbye.